So I'm sure I've shared this story before, but it's a great story. Nelson Mandela, he's been put in prison for many, many years, and suddenly he gets released. As in an unjust imprisonment, but he gets released. And sometime after his release, he gets an interview, and the interviewer says to him, "How come you came out of that prison? I think it was like almost 30 years. How come you came out of that prison and you had no resentment, no bitterness, no anger?" Nelson Mandela says to this interviewer, "I chose, when I walked out of that prison, to leave all of that anger, bitterness and hurt behind me. Leave it in that cell." We all get choices. Our life is full of choices. We need to think about the choices that we make. And I want to introduce you to an idea that love is a choice of limitations. Love is a choice of limitations. And I want to suggest even that we limit God because of love. So let's explore that one a little bit more. If we go to Genesis chapter 3, there we have in the garden, well, before that, there's a bit of a story with God creating the world, the universe, everything else like that. And he creates man and woman. And then we pick up the story in Genesis chapter 3, where it seems as though there was a tree, and God had told Eve and Adam not to eat from this tree. Maybe you know the story. And the serpent tempts Eve to take of the fruit, and Adam eats of it as well. Now, what goes on in that story is basically what I keep trying to remind people. If you're part of my congregations, that you'll know that you've heard me say this before. I ask the question, what is sin? The answer is, sin is when I think I know better than God. Well, that's what happened in the story. You see, Eve and Adam, they're having this mental torture thing of thinking, well, we know what God said, but I think I know better than God. This is that they saw this fruit and they saw that it was good for food, and they wanted to get this kind of God knowledge. They wanted to be like God. So they ignored what God said, and they thought they knew better than God. So they ate the fruit. And that love that God had for Adam and Eve was a love choice of limitation. God couldn't just ignore this. There was a set of consequences, but that wasn't the end of God's love. God's love of choice of limitation meant that he had to work within those parameters, and he could work it out. While it was Adam and Eve that had caused this problem and this separation in that love relationship, it was God that could restore it and heal it. But there had to be some adaptation. First of all, God had to say, look, I'm sorry, but our relationship has changed and is different, at least for a while, so you'll have to leave the garden. That adapted. Then God says, but I'm not going to leave you alone. Because of my love choice of limitation for you, I will promise that I will sort this out, and I will send a Redeemer. So they were a people of promise. And then that gets enacted when God shows this love choice of limitation, that forsaking everything else, that God will come after mankind. And God comes to this earth and sending Jesus Christ, his Son. We get that story or that reference in John 3:16 and 17. For God so loved the world, God so much had this love choice of limitation, that he sorted the sin problem out. Not to catch us out, but to give us a hope. Love is a choice of limitations. We have that limitation, even in our relationship with God. That we limit ourselves. We put aside everything else. We say, no longer will I pursue myself. I want to pursue God. I want to be in that relationship with God. I've been studying a number of chapters in Genesis. And I'm sure I'm going to come back to it because there's a whole load of stories there surrounding these characters of Abraham and Lot. Lot was Abraham's niece, or one of his nieces, and it seems as though over a few decades he follows Abraham around. And then it gets to a point where Lot and Abraham, they become both very wealthy. I think Abraham's probably a bit more wealthy than Lot, but Lot is still wealthy, and he's got loads of animals, and they've both got loads of animals, loads of herds of animals anyway, sheep, cattle, goats, and so on. And it says in the story that their herdsmen started fighting each other, arguing about who was going to graze their animals on what bit of land. So eventually Abraham says to Lot, look, come on, we're family. This can't go on because we're just too big. We've got too many possessions. Your choice, Lot. Whichever way you go, I'll go the opposite way, and then we'll have plenty of space. So it says that Lot looks around and he sees this fertile valley area, and there's a whole load of stories there as well. He chose the best bit. Well, he chose the best bit by way of vegetation, but it was the worst bit because there were a number of cities there that were just totally rebellious against God. There was so much sin, so much selfishness going on in those cities. And it says that while they were nomadic people, they were living in tents. And he went down to this valley. Lot then somehow moves into the town or into one of the cities. And there in Sodom, he's living there, and Abraham gets some visitors, and it seems as though God and his own two angels come to Abraham, and they confirm this promise given to Abraham. And then the two angels go down, and their task is to these cities are so bad, they're turned against God so much that they're just going to be dealt with and wiped off the surface of the earth. But Lot is there. So what is God going to do with Lot? Well, I'll cut that whole bit of story down because Abraham starts pleading with God. But the visitors come into the city. Lot sees them, invites them to his house, and then there's a terrible bit of the story where some of the townsfolk, the men of the city, come banging on Lot's door, and they want these two visitors, and they want them outside for a bad reason. Because there might be little ears listening. I won't go into the details. You can read it yourself. And Lot goes out and he says, look, this is really, really bad. And then the angels pull him in and make all the people go blind. And then that kind of disperses the crowd a little bit. But these two angels say to Lot, get out. Get out. God is about to destroy the city. You need to get out. Now, this happened evening time. And then it says that Lot went off to see his to-be sons-in-law, and they think that he's just joking. So he comes back and he's still umming and ahhing and dilly-dallying around. And it says that these angels keep pleading with Lot. You need to get out now. And then it says just at daybreak, the angel grab Lot and his wife and the two daughters, and they pull them out of the city, run them out, and as they have left the city, they say, just keep going for the mountains, keep going for the hills, don't look back, or you will perish. And as they go rushing out, it says that Lot's wife looks back and she turns into a pillar of salt. It says that she was lagging behind a bit, but she turns into a pillar of salt. There's one comment in a book, Patriarchs and Prophets, that suggests that if Lot had been quicker at leaving the city, if Lot had in his choices, his love choices of limitation, if he saw that God was about to redeem him, to save his life, he would have gone straight away. But he looked at his possessions. He looked at all the things that he had, and his wife was doing the same. And in Lot's dilly-dallying and in his hesitancy, well, the author suggests that if Lot went straight away, then his wife would have gone with him and wouldn't have looked back. Love choices of limitation. When we have our love choices that are in conflict with our hearts and our heart's desire and what God really wants for us in our lives, we can not only mess things up for ourselves, but we can mess things up for other people because of our hesitancy. Get out. Get moving. Do what God calls you to do straight away, or there'll be losers. Love choices of limitation. Love is a choice of limitation. In Joshua 24, we get this choice question, invitation from Joshua. Joshua has become the leader of the Hebrew nation, the Israelite nation. And at the end of the book of Joshua, chapter 24, Joshua calls together, he's near the end of his life, he calls all the main leaders together, and he gives a little précis of some of their history, from Abraham through to Moses. It's not exhaustive, but each step of the way he just points out this is God's love relationship with us. This is God's choice, love choice of limitation for us. And this is how God provides for us. And now you need to make a choice. They've almost completely taken over the country that God had promised them, not quite the way that God has said. And that comes back to harm them and bite them on their heels later on in their history. But Joshua says to them, look, this is the way that God says that we are to live our lives, and this is the way that God has provided for us. Now is your time to choose. Maybe you've got a plaque on the wall with these kind of words from this verse as well in Joshua 24. Joshua says to them, you need to choose. And if God isn't going to be your God, then you need to choose who is going to be your God. But as for me and my home, we're going to choose God. When we choose God, what we're doing, the love is a choice of limitation. We're saying, I'm choosing God over choosing myself. I'm choosing God over choosing any other God. I'm choosing God because I want to accept that relationship, that covenant, that agreement. That God loves me so much that he provides for me, and I love God so much that I want to live my life the way that he wants me to live. After all, he's my creator. Love is a choice of limitations. We have that kind of choice of limitation in lots of other things in our lives. We have it in our wedding vows, maybe certainly in a traditional form of recitation. Is that the right word? Recital. When you're with the pastor there and you're getting married, and maybe you choose to have these words. I choose to take so and so as my wife or as my husband, and I, forsaking all others. Forsaking all others. That's that kind of love choice of limitation. Forsaking all others. I am choosing to make this love relationship with this other person through the act of marriage. And I do that because love is a choice of limitations. I limit myself to this one person. No one else. I get to choose whoever, as long as I can enter a mutual relationship with them. I get to choose whoever I have a relationship with. But as far as marriage is concerned, I am showing this love choice of limitation by aligning myself with this one person, forsaking all others. We do it in other things as well. Maybe we choose which football team to support, whether it's MK Dons or Arsenal or Liverpool. It doesn't matter which team it is that we pick. It's a love choice of limitation. We're saying, this is my team. This is who I want to follow. Through thick or thin, this is my love choice of limitation. I could choose any team I want, but I don't choose any other team. I want to choose this team. This is your love choice of limitation. Timothy Keller, I've referenced him in a previous talk in the book The Prodigal God. I'm reading this book at the moment. Timothy Keller, The Reason for God. And in one of the early chapters, it talks a little bit about, he doesn't use that phrase, love choice of limitations, but he's grappling with this idea of people choosing God or not choosing God, and feeling as though we are constricted in God's imposition on us if we want to be a Christian. So he says, it tells a story. It's not a unique story, because he says it's kind of conversation that he has quite often. And this conversation will be something along the lines of, someone will say eventually, well, I think that my moral lifestyle should be my own choice. I should be able to get to choose. It shouldn't be someone else. It shouldn't be God. Everyone should be able to choose their own moral lifestyle. To which Timothy Keller asks them the question, so if everyone should get to choose their own moral lifestyle, is there anyone that you know or know of in the world that you think that person, their choices, someone should do something about it? So they need to change their moral lifestyle. Is there anyone that you know that is like that? Invariably, everyone says, well, yeah. I mean, the news is full of people like this. People that make choices, maybe an imposition on you or other people. But people need to be told that they're wrong. Timothy Keller says, you believe there is a defining morality that exists regardless of their belief and choice. On the one hand, you say, we should be able to choose whatever we like, whatever moral lifestyle we like. And on the other hand, you're saying, but I know people that need to be put right. You're coming at them with your own choices, your own moral lifestyle. You can't have both. Love is a choice of limitations. But God says, I love you. I came to this earth to deal with a sin problem, and I want to be in relationship with you, but you get to choose. And if we enter this loving relationship, then this is the love choice of limitation in our moral lifestyle that we need to live by. That's that covenant, that agreement that we come to with God. Love is a choice of limitations. So we shouldn't complain about God. We shouldn't come to God or grapple with other people that may be God followers and say, well, I think God should change this. And I don't like the way that you say, the church says, God says that this is right or this is wrong. Well, God isn't like some sort of smorgasbord of life choices. That we'll come after God as long as God fits what we want. No, love is a choice of limitations. We are now saying if we love God, if we're coming after God with our whole heart, that we will agree to these limitations. We won't impose ourselves on our relationship with God anymore. We don't think that we know better than God. We accept that God knows best. There was a time when a thing called postmodernism, and then we seem to have stepped beyond that and beyond that even still. And I don't even remember what the current phrases are of the next phase of postmodernism. But I used to really get a bit riled with it. Postmodernism kind of had the idea, if I get it right, as though there is no one right. There's no one thing. That there is this mixture. People can pick and choose. No one right way. But the thing is with that is there are still, even with that idea, there are still multiple ways. And for someone to know and hear what my way is, they need to know how I define that, what I do and don't do. Otherwise, it just gets watered down so much, and Christianity can get watered down so much that it's meaningless. I need to be clear of my love choice of limitation with God means this is the way that I choose to follow after God, because this is the way that God invites me to follow him. Proclaiming that we love God means that we limit ourselves to God and God only. It's God's way, not my way. I don't think I know better than God. I want to come after God with a love choice of limitation for God and God alone. Maybe you know someone who could do with knowing about the love choices of limitation and how God wants to have a love choice of limitation with them. Stay safe. Stay safe.